In 2018, Dan Harmon was accused of harassment, and he did something incredibly unprecedented. He owned up to it and publicly apologized.
I was attracted to a employee, flirty, creepy. Then I went right, full steam into creeping on my employee. I finally got to the point where I said to her, I love you, because that's what I thought it was when you target somebody for 2 years and it was therefore rejected that way. I was humiliated. So I wanted to teach her a lesson. I wanted to show her that if she didn't like being liked in that way, then, oh boy, she should get over herself. After all, if you're just going to be a writer, then this is how just writers get treated. I drank. I took pills. I crushed on her and resented her for not reciprocating it. And the entire time I was the one writing her paychecks and in control of whether she stayed or went and whether she felt good about herself or not, and said horrible things. Just treated her cruelly, pointedly. Things that I would never, ever, ever have done if she had been male. I certainly wouldn't have been able to do it if I had any respect for women. On a fundamental level, I was thinking about them as different creatures. I was thinking about the ones that I liked as having some special role in my life. So I just want to say, in addition to obviously being sorry, I want to say I did it by not thinking about it. And I got away with it by not thinking about it.
A notion that would come to be crazy to his creative partner of 2 decades, Justin Roiland, who was not just accused of harassment like Harmon. It was widely reported, with messages and all, that he had been interacting with very young female fans, some as young as 16, and turning the conversation sexual and even eventually attempting to meet in order to make advances on them. One of these young women even stated Roiland had forced himself on her, like fully, after she had said no, and even provided messages from Roiland apologizing for the incident. All of this was thoroughly reported on, with lots of messages established to be coming from his personal number and social media accounts, unlike Harmon's situation, which was much looser when he chose to apologize. Yet Roiland refused to even acknowledge he had done anything wrong, denying every single accusation despite the actual messages that had been proven to come from him to these young women. And honestly, I don't know that even an apology would have been enough to keep Justin from losing his job on Rick and Morty, but what I will say is that it absolutely will work more in your favor than simply denying it. This reminds me a little of the Louis C.K. controversy, where if you didn't know, he, without permission, exposed and stimulated himself in front of different young female comedians who explicitly were big fans of his and had expressed as much and had previously sought him out for career advice, also known as sexual harassment, assault, and indecent exposure. This was an established fact, but he at least didn't deny it and instead apologized, even if he has soured on his quote-unquote cancellation since, and talking about how ridiculous it is that someone should lose their whole career over sexual assault has become one of his favorite stand-up bits. He did at least apologize, and his career has continued, unlike Roiland, whose career just came to a complete halt. After literal decades of working alongside Dan Harmon, their partnership ended in a flash. But like I said, Justin was chasing girls, even himself calling them jailbait. I think we can all agree that a 43-year-old man sending sexual messages to 16-year-olds makes him a pedophile, and that's not a controversial topic. It's just bad. Unlike more general things like quote-unquote being canceled. Getting canceled makes him sound like the victim, instead of what he actually is, the victimizer. Which is why it's funny that he still to this day refuses to admit what he did. You may have heard that the court case against him was dropped in 2023, to which he said he was looking forward to getting back to work and clearing his good name, but that lawsuit was from his ex, who had accused him of assault 3 years prior, which he had actually been arrested for. Unlike how he framed it, it was not his name being cleared, and the case only was dropped due to insufficient evidence. But his victims did not file suit. They simply came forward and provided the messages, and multiple news media outlets fact-checked and confirmed. He still claims it was defamatory, but hey, if that were true, why not sue? If he knows it's all lies and they have no proof, he should sue for defamation, right? But he hasn't, and he won't, because it's simply true. There's also the fact that Adult Swim years prior had been forced to investigate him due to a number of complaints from coworkers, an investigation that apparently took right up until the pedophile allegations came out to wrap up. A little suspicious, but whatever. So why does he deny it? Let's be honest about this. He is probably one of the many men who are incapable of consciously coming to terms with the ugly reality that they have sexually assaulted someone.
I did it by not thinking about it, and I got away with it by not thinking about it.
It's a dark thing, one would think, to know that you're a rapist, especially if you aren't someone so evil that you revel in it, or even just someone who abuses a power dynamic. It can be hard to accept that you're someone like that. Like countless frat boys and many of my own fellow veterans, I honestly think he believed his actions were okay because of some vague set of self-imposed rules. He probably thinks by waiting till girls were 18 and by paying for their flights and allowing them to enjoy a taste of the good life and allowing them to meet the amazing man that he was, that they were choosing to have sex with him without feeling any pressure or there being any kind of power dynamic. He probably even managed to convince himself that giving alcohol to girls under 21 before attempting to have sex with them is just what guys do. It's just guy stuff, you know? She still chose it. It doesn't matter that she's literally drunk alone with a rich famous person she looks up to in a foreign city who's been pressuring her about sex since she was underage. She's of legal age now, and she's choosing it, so he must be a great guy. I honestly think this is how he views himself and the world. It's a dark world he must live in, and I, for one, would rather not support a franchise that allowed a man like that to be a part of it. And hopefully, if you've been upset about the change in voice actors, this helps you understand why it was so necessary, and why Dan Harmon is a great example of how to handle these types of situations. Own up to it, face what you did, and apologize. Then edit your behavior going forward. It's really not that complicated. When we look at the pattern, even just in the three guys I've mentioned in this video, it's always a man using a power dynamic to do something inappropriate. And Harmon, despite being guilty as well, made it easier for Roiland by setting the stage years before Roiland's issues came up. He set a perfect example for all men to follow.
Just think about it. No matter who you are at work, no matter where you're working, no matter what field you're in, no matter what position you have over or under or side by side with somebody, just think about it. You gotta... Because if you don't think about it, you're going to get away with not thinking about it. And you can cause a lot of damage and hurts everybody. And I think that we're living in a good time right now because we're not going to get away with it anymore. And if we can make it a normal part of our culture that we think about it and possibly talk about it, then maybe we can get to a better place where that stuff doesn't happen. So that's it. And let's move on. I'm bad at ending things. I'm going to now have a drink.
Now stop for a second and ask yourself, is that right there not the spirit of Rick and Morty? Like this broken down guy who fucked up wanting to do good and needing a drink? That's the heart of the show. So despite the flood of complaints about the slightly different voices, the show will thrive without Roiland. Someone who was a genuine creep. And the show was really Dan Harmon's baby from the start, and he's in charge of the overall creative direction anyways, even before Roiland left. The structure even is his. The same structure he used back when he worked on Community. Yeah, Roiland contributed a lot, but the overall creative direction of the show, the structure the show thrives on, that's always been Harmon. So while the show can survive losing Roiland, I don't think it would have survived losing Harmon.
I want you to be the one to examine this and every step of the way decide for yourself where I'm making mistakes. I don't want to explain to you what I've learned. I want you to look at this, and I want it to sound relatively unremarkable to you because that's the danger. In 2000, whatever, I can't remember, I had the privilege of running a network sitcom, and I was attracted to a employee. I really want to be careful about that language. I think a huge part of the problem is a culture of feeling things that you think are unique and significant because they're happening to you, and saying things like I had feelings for and I fell for and all these things. I mean, the most clinical way I can put it in fessing up to my crimes is that I was attracted to a writer that I had power over because I was a showrunner. And I knew enough to know that these feelings were bad news. That was easy enough to know. I knew that they ran the risk of undercutting people's faith in my judgment, her faith in her talent, the other writer's respect for me, the entire production, the audience. I knew I wasn't doing anybody any favors by feeling these things. And so I did the cowardly, easiest, laziest thing you could do with feelings like that, and I didn't deal with them. And in not dealing with them, I made everybody else deal with them, especially her. Flirty, creepy, everything other than overt enough to constitute betraying your live-in girlfriend to whom you're going home every night, who is actually smart enough and respectful enough to ask you, do you have feelings for that young writer that you're talking about, that you're paying all this attention to? And saying to her, no, because the trick is if you lie to yourself, you can lie to everybody. It's really easy. And so that's what I continued to do, telling myself and anybody that threatened to confront me with it, that if you thought what I was doing was creepy or flirty or unprofessional, then it's because you were the sexist. You were jealous. I was supporting this person. I'm a mentor. I'm a feminist. It's your problem, not mine. It's you're the one that actually is seeing things through that lens. And so I let myself keep doing it. And it's not as if this person didn't repeatedly communicate to me the idea that what I was doing was divesting her of a recourse to integrity. I just didn't hear it. And it's because it didn't profit me to hear it. And this was, after all, happening to me. Right. And so after a season of playing it that way, I broke up with my girlfriend, who I had lied to the whole time while lying to myself, lied to her about why I was breaking up with her, because I thought that would make having inappropriate feelings for a coworker appropriate if I wasn't involved. Then I went right, full steam into creeping on my employee. Now it was even less appropriate after all. Now I wasn't in danger of being a bad person. And then after that season, I got overt about my feelings after it was wrapped and said, oh, I love you. And she said the same thing she'd been saying the entire time in one language or another. Please, don't you understand that focusing on me like this, liking me like this, preferring me like this, I can't say no to it. And when you do it, it makes me unable to know whether I'm good at my job. And because I finally got to the point where I said to her, I love you, because that's what I thought it was when you target somebody for 2 years. And it was therefore rejected that way. I was humiliated. So I continued to do the cowardly thing and continued to do the selfish thing. Now I wanted to teach her a lesson. I wanted to show her that if she didn't like being liked in that way, then, oh boy, she should get over herself. After all, if you're just going to be a writer, then this is how just writers get treated. And that was probably the darkest of it all. I'm going to assume that when she tweets about it, and refers to trauma, that's probably it, because I drank, I took pills, I crushed on her and resented her for not reciprocating it. And the entire time I was the one writing her paychecks and in control of whether she stayed or went and whether she felt good about herself or not, and said horrible things. Just treated her cruelly, pointedly. Things that I would never, ever, ever have done if she had been male and if I had never had those feelings for her. And I lied to myself the entire time about it. And I lost my job. I ruined my show. I betrayed the audience. I destroyed everything, and I damaged her internal compass, and I moved on. And I never did it before, and I will never do it again, but I certainly wouldn't have been able to do it if I had any respect for women. On a fundamental level, I was thinking about them as different creatures. I was thinking about the ones that I liked as having some special role in my life, and I did it all by not thinking about it. So I just want to say, in addition to obviously being sorry, but that's really not the important thing, I want to say I did it by not thinking about it. And I got away with it by not thinking about it. And if she hadn't mentioned something on Twitter, I would have continued to not have to think about it. Although I did walk around with my stomach in knots about it, but I wouldn't have had to talk about it. And the last and most important thing I can say is just think about it. No matter who you are at work, no matter where you're working, no matter what field you're in, no matter what position you have over or under or side by side with somebody, just think about it. You gotta, because if you don't think about it, you're gonna get away with not thinking about it. And you can cause a lot of damage that is technically legal, and hurts everybody. And I think that we're living in a good time right now because we're not going to get away with it anymore. And if we can make it a normal part of our culture that we think about it and possibly talk about it, then maybe we can get to a better place where that stuff doesn't happen. So that's it. And let's move on. I'm bad at ending things. I'm going to now have a drink.